Jimmy Hoffa had always believed that if you were powerful enough, you couldn't simply disappear. For most of his life, that belief was true. Hoffa rose from nothing, a dock worker's son who learned early that men listened more carefully when they were afraid. By the time he took control of the Teamsters, he wasn't just running a union. He was controlling the veins of America. Trucks stopped when he said they stopped. Goods moved when he allowed them to move. Presidents pretended not to notice him, and prosecutors obsessed over bringing him down. And the Mafia watched closely, admiring his usefulness. For years, Hoffa and organized crime existed in an uneasy partnership. He needed their muscle. They needed his access to union pension funds and national influence. It wasn't friendship. It was business. Dangerous business. But Hoffa believed he understood the rules. He believed loyalty mattered. He believed that history protected men like him. Then prison happened. When Hoffa went away, the world did not pause. It adjusted. Quieter men filled the spaces he left behind. Deals were made without him. And when he came back, thinner and older, but still burning with rage, he found something far worse than enemies. He found indifference. The Mafia no longer needed Jimmy Hoffa. Worse, they didn't trust him. He talked too much. He wanted his old power back. He was unpredictable. And in that world, unpredictability was unforgivable. By the summer of 1975, Hoffa was fighting a battle no one else believed he could win. He argued loudly in restaurants, called old allies who stopped returning his calls, and threatened to expose people who had long assumed he was finished. He didn't realize that his greatest weapon, what he knew, had become his death sentence. On July 30th, the heat sat heavy over Michigan. Hoffa left his home in Lake Orion dressed neatly, as always. He told his wife he was meeting some men for lunch. His tone was irritated, but not anxious. Hoffa had been angry his entire life. Anger had never hurt him before. He drove to Machu's Red Fox, a place chosen not for comfort, but for familiarity. Powerful men had been meeting there for years. It felt safe, respectable, public. Hoffa arrived early. He always did. He hated waiting, but he hated being late even more. Witnesses later remembered him pacing the parking lot, his movements sharp, his posture rigid. At times he glanced at the road. At other moments he stared at nothing at all, lost in the weight of his own thoughts. The men he expected never came. As the minutes stretched on, Hoffa grew visibly frustrated. He went back to his car and made a phone call. His wife answered. He complained that the men were late. He sounded annoyed, confused, but not afraid. There was no goodbye in his voice. No hesitation. Just irritation. That call ended everything. What happened next unfolded so quietly that it barely registered as a moment at all. No one heard a struggle. No one saw him forced into a car. No screams, no violence. Hoffa simply stopped being there. At some point, he trusted someone enough to get into their vehicle. That trust was the last mistake he ever made. When Hoffa failed to come home that night, the worry came slowly at first, then all at once. Police found his car still sitting in the restaurant parking lot. The doors were locked. Inside, everything was ordinary. Too ordinary. No blood. No weapon. No sign that a crime had occurred at all. It was as if the man himself had been removed, leaving the world intact around him. The search that followed was relentless. Tips flooded in. Informants told stories in dim rooms, their voices low, their eyes darting. One said Hoffa was shot in a suburban house. Another swore he was strangled in the back seat of a car. Others claimed his body was taken to a crematorium, reduced to nothing before dawn. Each story led nowhere. FBI agents dug into fields, tore up concrete, drained water. Every hole ended the same way, empty. Years passed. Suspects died. Witnesses forgot or recanted. And the truth began to decay piece by piece, until it became impossible to tell which version had ever been real. What remained was only consensus. Jimmy Hoffa had been killed. Not in anger, not in chaos, but deliberately. He was removed because he had become inconvenient, because he knew too much. Because he refused to stay silent. And because men like Hoffa were never allowed to fade away naturally. So they made sure he vanished completely. No grave. No marker. No place for closure. Decades later, his name still echoes. Not because he was found, but because he wasn't. Because in a nation obsessed with justice and answers, Jimmy Hoffa represents the unsettling truth that sometimes power doesn't protect you. Sometimes it erases you. And somewhere between a parking lot in Michigan and the long silence that followed, Jimmy Hoffa became a ghost, not of a man, but of a warning.